not sure where I'm going with this video, but I had this interesting opportunity and then thought maybe you'd be interested in part of the journey. I attended a meeting last night, and one of the members, Mike Hare, who is a skilled woodworker, woodturner, and woodworking entrepreneur, had come into a whole bunch of these kendamas from a company that, I don't know whether it went out of business, whatever, but he's got lots and lots of them. He gave me a box of them and said, see what you can do with them. So this is going to be my journey to see what I can do with them, a few of them, and to bring them to a meeting next week, so people might get enthusiastic about making some things and repurposing this wood. These particular pieces of wood are made out of Bubinga, which I've never turned before, hardwood, but let's see what I can make out of them. The manufacturing process called for sticking a pin to hold these things together, which is a lot stronger than, better than glue, I think, for our purposes, taking it loose. Now, the first one I tried to dislodge with a punch, knocking out that pin. That didn't work real well. When I did finally get it out, trying to get it to come loose, I wound up breaking this because I was hammering on it or something. Anyhow, so let me show you the way it worked for me, and that was actually to take a drill bit and drill through there to drill that pin out. Now, it's wedged in there pretty tight, so the next step is to figure out how to knock it loose without breaking the end. So the next step is to smack this thing to dislodge it, and I find the easiest way is stick it through the bed ways and use a mallet, a wooden mallet. You made one of these, right? If not, you need to make one. And there we go. Now we got two pieces of wood that I can use for different projects, and I'm gonna, as I walk through this project, I'll talk a little bit about how do you chuck these pieces to get to the next step on the project we're going to come up with. So I was able to chuck this in my 40 millimeter SC2 jaws, and I think it would probably hold pretty good if I was turning on this end. But what I'm going to do is turn a little V groove here to make it, I think, maybe a stronger hole. So let's try that and see how that works. It's running fairly true, so I'm just going to put a little V groove right here. And now let's turn it around and see if that doesn't hold it even better for a project. So I turn this loose and just get it to fit in there with those dovetail jaws. Actually, not even dovetail, and micro hawk style. That I think this is going to hold it very well, very solid. Now we got to figure out what am I going to make with this. So I looked around some of the small stuff I made and said, what are some of the candidates that I could possibly come up with? And here's a few of them, and a couple of reject. I thought maybe a pillbox, but this is a little too large for the blank in question. So here's some of my options. I can turn a candle for a candle ornament. This looks promising. A handbell. I could either make the handle or I could make the bell, or both parts. How about parts of a little elf ornament? I think I could make a nice hat. I'd like a lighter color wood for the base, so maybe not for the blanks that I've got, but how about the nose? Yeah, that's a good candidate. Maybe a little refrigerator magnet mushroom, that's a possibility. And little Christmas tree ornaments is a possibility. How about finials? Finials for the bottom of a birdhouse ornament. I think that's a great possibility. So I'm thinking a handbell will be a good candidate, so let's start with that. First thing I've got to do is I've got to change this shape somewhat flat so it would fit in a jam chuck. I'm going to hollow it out and then shape the outside of the bell, part it off, and drill a hole. So I'm going to use a 3/8 inch spindle gouge and get this edge flat. I want to put a little feature ring on here somewhere. I'll have to decide where to do that, but I think I want maybe hollow this out first. So let's which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Let's change it. Let's do the outside and add that feature ring before I go too much further. Okay, now let's add a little feature ring right here. Kind of a bead. Use my point tool. Now I've got to bring the lid down. See that bead? Same thing on this end. The bead stands proud. Yeah, I think that'll work. Now let's hollow it. So integrating hollowing, use the traditional approach with a spindle gouge. Start in the middle, hollow it a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and drill a through hole for the peg for the handle. And I might not even have to jam chuck this. So let's just stick it in there. Well, that's the challenge of getting that thing perfectly centered. I'll switch to a little pointier detail tool to get in there a little bit deeper in the middle. Alright, I'll sand that up before we part it off. Okay, let's just finish rounding this off and parting it off. Okay, I can just about part that off now. I think I may use a thin parting tool to do that. I used my shear spear made out of a piece of high-speed steel from a Harbor Freight miniature tool set. Okay, there it goes. Being a hard wood like Bubinga, it'll survive. So I've got to do a little more shaping here when I get it in a jam chuck. So let's go to that. Okay, I'm going to finish off the top of this this bell. We're going to use a little spindle scrap for a jam chuck. You do save all your spindle scraps, right? Kind of mark this. Slow the speed down a little bit. Close. And that's spinning very true. And let's see, I'm going to see if it's strong enough for me to round it over here a little bit. This speed up a little bit. Very light cuts. Ride the bevel. Look until it cuts. Okay, I think that's good enough to sand, and we've got to drill a little hole. And I found in the past that drilling these kind of holes with a hand drill, sometimes you get them off center, so I'm going to use a drill chuck. I'm using a small drill bit, in this case about I think 9/64, and going to drill through. Slow the speed down to no more than about 1,000 or so. Just ease it in, let it find its way, and then go ahead and drill all through. There we go. Now I'll sand that and make a handle, and we'll be done. With the scrap left in here, I think I can make a birdhouse ornament, downsize it a little bit from this, and make a roof. So let's try that. So I've got to figure out how to turn it around so I can put the recess in it, and I think the way I'm going to do that is just make a cylinder on the top, along a bit of a tenon. Let's just get rid of some of this waste. There, got rid of most of it. So let's make a tenon. I want to make it as large as possible in order to keep my design opportunities there. Still got too much waste here. Still got a little bit of waste. Okay, I think that'll work. And now I'll have to turn it around a little bit. So I mounted a set of chuck jaws and chuck that'll hold that little tenon, I think, so I can open it up to fasten the birdhouse, which hasn't been made yet. Just twist in there. Yeah, that's got a nice hole to it. Now I'm just going to put a recess there. I'll have to decide how big a recess. I'm going to use a 1 1/8 inch drill bit to make a small recess that I can use to reverse chuck this with. Bring the speed down a little bit to no more than 500 or so. Don't want to go too deep or it'll reduce my design opportunities there, so that should work out just fine. And next, while I've got it chucked up like this, I can go ahead and start working on this end. I see a little something there I need to get rid of. So let's just take this down. I'm going to use that recess. No, I had to kind of start shaking this. Speed up a little bit here. I'm going to sharpen this tool. It's not cutting as well as it should be. It's amazing what removing a few microns of steel will do for ease of cutting. Okay, that's enough for the time being until I reverse chuck it. Now I'm using these pin jaws and just tighten it a little bit. Now I can finish easily shaping. I can finish shaping that roof line, and I think this Bubinga is going to have a, with this grain and color, make a nice little birdhouse ornament roof. And it's running very true. So now let's just finish shaping it. And I think I'll take it down just a little bit more. Actually, I think what I'm going to do, instead of a screw eye, I like to drill a lateral hole through there, so let me do that. Let me drill a small hole and to put the cord through. Drill it straight up and down. Okay, I used my point tool to make some little beads there. I'm not going to finish all these projects. I might finish them and show them at the very end of the video, but I want to show you how many different ones I can make. So let's set that aside. We're going to turn a tiny little finial for the bottom of the acorn, bottom of the birdhouse ornament we've turned already. So we got a hole here. Let's get rid of that. Actually, I think maybe what I'll do is bring up. No, I don't think I'll need the tail sock support. Get the speed up. I think the feature I'm going to turn here is just kind of a little flat knob, like that. And then we're going to have a sweep here. Now, I'm going to take one right here. Probably ought to sand that while I can. Touch it up with a little 240. Slow the speed down a little bit. Down just a little bit, round it over, a little bit more pronounced. And then let's use a little abrasive paste on here to kind of shine it up. And now we size this little tenon before we part it off using a little 1/4 inch. Use a thin parting tool. There we go. Alright, now let's make a gonk hat. The challenge on this is going to be chucking it. This has got a narrow taper to it, so I have got to somehow get that parallel to be able to use these jaws to hold it. Let me think about that for a second. And I think the easiest way might be to hold it like I did before with this. Now that I look at this, I don't even need to turn this to a cylinder to reverse chuck it, because I can turn the whole thing here. Usually I have a peg here and a hole here, but there's nothing to say I couldn't do it the other way around. So let's just do the whole thing in one chucking. So this will be the bottom of the hat. This will be the beginning of the rim. This will actually just end where that hole is. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to use my 3/8 inch spindle gouge and just turn the end around. Right here. Whoa! That was exciting. I found a piece of wood. Maybe it wasn't true. Maybe I didn't get it. But it looks like there it caught and just jerked it right out. But we can fix that. Exciting though. This goes to show you this wasn't the best chucking method here. I guess I could make it better, but I'm just gonna make do. Okay. I'll change tools for doing that. I'm gonna go to a skew. And in addition, maybe I'll bring up some tailstock support just to ensure that this hold, which is actually, it doesn't, there's nothing to keep it from rocking very well, so let's go ahead and see if I can't use tailstock support. Hey, it's all part of the fun, right? Problem solving. And let's just put that in there. So now I think that will support it well enough for me to do whatever I need to do. Okay, so there's where we're gonna make a ball, top of the ball. Here's where we're gonna make the bottom of the little ball. And as before, I'm going to drill a hole down in here to put the cord. So let's go ahead and do that just like before. We're just going to mark it. Let me get this perpendicular. Okay. And now, we're not going to remove this. We're going to keep that there as long as possible while I shape the rest of the hat. So first, I'm going to get rid of that little skate back I had. And then we're going to turn the bottom of the little ball feature. And now we're going to just shape this. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to just sand this down a little bit. I'll sand through all the grits, and let's go ahead and polish it up with a little abrasive paste, a little pumice or abrasive mixed with some beeswax and mineral oil. I got a separate video on that. All right, let's just get the speed up. That Bubinga shines up really nice. Okay, before I do that end, I'm going to start down here with a parting cut. And first I'm going to shape it a little bit. I'm going to use this beading and parting tool. And I'm just going to come in right here. And now I probably need to round over that in there just a little bit. Maybe touch that up with a little 300 grit. The less steel on the metal, the less steel on the wood, obviously the less friction. So I'm going to concave that in just a little bit. Although I need to go ahead and take that off. So I'm using a skew, make a little V-cut. Light touch. Light touch. Okay. I'll hit the end of that with a little 320. Now all I got to do is take this down with a thin parting tool and leave a small peg, maybe an eighth of an inch, 9/64 of an inch, just mostly to help locate it on the top of the head. I want to get that close to 1/4 of an inch is what I've used in the past, maybe a little bit smaller. Yep, that'll do it. And now I'll just part it off. I have a tough time getting in there with the skew, so I'll use my little shear spear. And let's slow the speed down just a little bit. And here's my gone cat ready to go. Okay, take one more scrap, maybe make one more ornament, a little acorn. And then here, that shape in the bottom of the acorn. And just a hint of a point. I need to mark where that husk's going to be, so I think what I'll do is I'll just use a skew and make a tiny little V groove here. It's actually going to have to come in there just a little bit. Okay, now we'll bring it around and round this over just a little bit. Before we round it though, I think I want to sand it and do some texturing. Hit that with a little 300 grit. Okay, now we're going to texture this with Ron Brown's Best Texturing Tool. Closer here. And I'm going to use this 1/4 inch fine tooth. I'm going to slow the speed down to no more than about 350. And we're just going to press it in very hard. I'm going to slowly ease it around. Whoa, it's rolling on me. Let me try to slip this into that pattern. Alright, let me put a little that abrasive paste on here so you can see what this looks like maybe. Speed up a little bit. See the difference between the shine and the texture here. So now I'm going to figure out how I've got to chuck this in order to take that stem down. Quarter-inch detail, guys. Yeah, that looks okay. Well, I think it would look good if I could get this tiny little V groove back here. Add a little bit of detail. And then maybe just a tiny little cove in the stem. Whoa! It's alright, popped it off pretty clean. That sheared off because I forgot that this was concave on the other side. That's okay. So,
we're going to make us a jam chuck, so let's get a different chuck on here. Looks like my 1-inch drill bit may be close, may fit. Slow it down some. Just got to be careful not to drill into the chuck. So, put that in. It goes in a little ways, it sticks. I need to just do a little bit of a taper here. Let's do that. Oh yeah, I think that'll work just fine. I've just got to get this lined up. I think that's got it. That's running very true, so I can clean that up. Taper this in very carefully. Get the speed up a little bit. I want to put just a hint of a detail right there. And just cove this in ever so slightly. Okay, sand it, and then I need to drill a tiny little hole here. So let's put a tiny little divot there. Learn more about jam chucks, click on the video up here. It'll get you out of a lot of jams. Let's get that speed up a little bit. And let's just go ahead and make a little bead there. Okay. Details on small things matter. That looks good. I like that. I'm not sure what I can use this for, but while it's chucked up in here, I want to go ahead and at least make it a little tenon on the end for holding in the chuck. So I want it square. And now I've got a scrap I can use for something. Okay, that little scrap we had, I think I figured out something I can do with that. Let's make a little knob. So, we're going to take that little cylinder. We may not need that. I'm going to put it back in the chuck. And what I've got to do is I've got to flatten this and drill a hole in it for the screw mandrel. And I'll show you that in just a moment. But I think the easiest way to do that may be just to use a parting tool. Tool rest a little high for this. Okay, and we'll just stroke that. Let that spindle get out. Get rid of that little nib there. Move across. I think we got it flat. Let's just test it for flatness, because this is the part that's going to go against your box or furniture. Yeah, that looks good. Alright, now I'm going to make just the tiniest little starter hole. I'll use a skew for that. Okay. And when you're going to use that same, I'm going to use this little starter drill bit. It's 9/64 of an inch. And we're going to go in there. Probably ought to measure. I'll go a little deeper than that. And now we're going to mount that on this screw mandrel, which happens to be on a threaded glue block. So, and before we put it on, we need to put it on here and then get a screwdriver and tighten it in from the back side. So let me do that. So I've started it on that screw, but I want to put it in a little bit deeper for a little stronger hold in the back. And I think I could probably go a little deeper. Okay. Okay, I'm going to thread this on. And I think to make this design easy, I'm going to leave that concave on there. Got a little damage from the screw chuck that we need to clean up. And I think it's going to be strong enough without having to do anything special there. Let's hope so. So let's just use this 3/8 inch spindle gouge. And I'm going to make this slightly round. Rid of any of the chucking damage that I had before. See how I'm doing here? No scratches. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to round over the back end, and we're just going to make a cove in here. That base will come down from there a little bit. Let's start with this. Coming from behind the knob, we just make a cove, and from the bottom here, the other part of the cove, and we could make a tiny little feature right here if we want to, tiny little bead maybe. There we go. And all we got to do is sand that up and we're done. And I think that cove makes for a very attractive looking knob. Well, that was a fun challenge, turning a couple of these into 4 ornaments and a knob. I hope you got something out of it. If so, please leave something in the comments below. I read all the comments and I really appreciate your feedback. And remember, y'all stay safe and come on back, you hear?